In December of 2006, Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess was released. After the cel-shaded romp through the Great Sea of Wind Waker and the multiplayer madness of Four Swords Adventures, people were eager for a return to form. Twilight Princess was just that. GameCube owners were able to see their console out with one last epic Zelda adventure, and Wii owners were able to break their new console in with an entire Zelda game. Twilight Princess was a critical and commercial success. Critics praised the atmosphere, the temple design, and the bigger emphasis on a cinematic story. Players agreed. Twilight Princess is the second best-selling Zelda game of all time, only behind Breath of the Wild. This didn't go unnoticed by Nintendo, and particularly by Shigeru Miyamoto. Aside from Twilight Princess's critical and commercial success, Twilight Princess is to this day the favorite game of many Zelda fans. My co-narrator today, the venerated Tyler Townsend, is one of these people.
The affection for Twilight Princess was notable pretty much right off the bat, and when it came time for the Zelda team to start their next project, Miyamoto wanted to make their next project a sequel to Twilight Princess. Not a vague sequel linked only through story like Wind Waker is to Ocarina of Time, and also not a sequel that totally changes the style of gameplay, like the DS games. No, Miyamoto was thinking of Majora's Mask when he considered the Twilight Princess sequel. He thought of the way that Nintendo was able to take their already existing assets in Ocarina of Time and reuse them to tell a new story. In this way, the Zelda team was able to release an entirely new experience to Zelda fans, but without having to go through the long development cycle a new Zelda game usually entails. People already loved Twilight Princess's world and gameplay, and so it seemed like another game using its assets would be perfect. So Miyamoto approached the Zelda team to brainstorm ideas. The team was naturally thrilled at the prospect, and it was not hard for them to come up with ideas. The world of Twilight Princess was well fleshed out, and there were a lot of directions that they could go.
Problems struck almost immediately. There seemed to be some miscommunication between Miyamoto and the Zelda team in terms of what the game was meant to look like. Miyamoto wasn't looking for the next mainline Zelda. The idea of another Wind Waker or Twilight Princess sized game would be too ambitious even if it was reusing Twilight Princess's engines, or at least Miyamoto thought so. He was looking for, as he puts it in his own words, a side story. The Zelda team, however, didn't seem to understand this and were pitching Miyamoto grand ideas that he describes as epic tales. This tension between Miyamoto and the Zelda team is something that, as you'll see, doesn't go away during the life of this project. Anybody who knows about Miyamoto knows he has some very specific opinions on game design. And it would obviously be foolish to doubt Miyamoto considering his legacy, but there's an argument to be made that his ideas don't necessarily translate the cleanest to the modern day gaming industry, at least not in every scenario. Miyamoto believes in a certain simplicity in his games, a focus on a central enjoyable mechanic and clearing out anything that might clog it up or get in its way. This is where Nintendo's story-second, gameplay-first ethos comes from. As Miyamoto puts it himself,
"Of course, it's also important to continue creating epics, but I do not believe that an epic tale alone can make a great game. I mean, depending on what kind of characteristics are added to a game, the fundamental enjoyment behind it can get lost amongst all the gadgets."
This aspect undeniably still rings true in some ways today. Mario Odyssey is the truest conveyance of Miyamoto's principles that there ever was, but his ethos often clashes with series that tend to have a stronger focus on story, or at least series people wish had a stronger focus on story. The simplification of the Paper Mario series comes to mind, and Miyamoto's disheartening demand for the developers to cease the use of original characters, instead being forced to use minimally customized standard characters from the Mario universe. The struggle between Miyamoto and his team can be well imagined. The staff pushing for probably very cool ideas for a follow-up or extension to Twilight Princess's story, and Miyamoto shooting them down for being too complicated. They spent a while pondering, as Miyamoto puts it, over this project. In the end, Miyamoto fell back to his traditional process of focusing first on a gameplay hook. He told the team that the Twilight Princess sequel would need to use the Wii Zapper.
The team was, as I'm sure you can imagine, a little shocked and confused by this. At risk of reading into the situation too much, they were likely fairly disappointed. Imagine getting the chance to come up with the idea for a follow-up to a Zelda epic, only to be told shortly after that it needs to focus on the Wii Zapper. I imagine it would be frustrating. Miyamoto recalls that when he broke this news to the team, he was essentially killing all the ideas they were working with until then. Satoru Iwata, who was pitching the project to Nintendo of America, recalled this tension between Miyamoto and his team.
Well, at the beginning of the project, even I sensed an air of disagreement, or at least a lack of understanding amongst some of the staff.
Miyamoto essentially wanted to make the first-person Zelda game that he'd wanted as far back as Ocarina of Time, and he wanted it to be a simple, straightforward affair. The game was to show off how simple and fun the Wii Zapper could be to use, something that anybody could pick up and play. To the people working on it, it probably felt like this game was becoming less of a Twilight Princess sequel, and more of a demo for a plastic accessory. The team didn't feel good about this idea, and some of them even felt that selling a Wii Zapper demo using Twilight Princess assets might feel deceiving to customers.
Seeking to end the dispute, Miyamoto made them a proposal.
I proposed to them that we make a working prototype and ask our test players to play and let us know their impression. If they told us that it wasn't fun, we would stop development right there.
Fortunately for Miyamoto, and perhaps unfortunately for the team, the prototype was well received.
Nintendo of America got together a group, including a number of die-hard Zelda fans. But none of them said, "What? This isn't Zelda?" And they started really enjoying the game. And we knew that it was a go.
Those working on the game may not have been convinced, and according to Iwata, even Nintendo of America had doubts, but Miyamoto was settled. The Twilight Princess follow-up would be a very simple first and third person affair, using the Wii Zapper and assets from Twilight Princess. However, the team would not settle for making essentially a simple tech demo, and even with their new restrictions, they were still pushing for the game to have an involved story and deep mechanics. In the end, Miyamoto cracked down again and laid out restrictions.
For this matter, I intentionally ordered our team a number of don'ts in the game's development. Like, we cannot include anything unnecessary, or we cannot make a movie, or the player should be able to complete one stage within 3 minutes.
Why was Miyamoto so strict in terms of how simple the game would be? Well, he tells us why.
The fact is, the journey is really the reward, and there are times when game creators use well-made rewards as the excuse. For example, if someone invents an ending that they're really proud of, that they just think is fantastic, then they might end up settling for a less than splendid journey. But that's a definite case of getting your priorities mixed up. So, with Link's Crossbow Training, I really saw it as my responsibility to make sure that the creators didn't get too caught up with the reward, and focus instead on making the journey itself the fun part.
The developers, even after coming to terms with the fact they wouldn't be developing the Twilight Princess sequel they thought they were, still pushed to make the game more sophisticated and deep than just a simple Wii Zapper shooting game. They pushed against Miyamoto even further, and they were able to get some concessions. Miyamoto's dedication to having the game as simple as can be was to the point that he didn't even want the game to have bosses in it. Yet the team pushed, and eventually were given permission to have a boss. Just one boss though, which ended up being the extremely memorable rematch against Star-Lord. They won a few other concessions as well, like some levels having diverging hidden paths. The final product would feel like they took the Hidden Village shootout from Twilight Princess and made a short game out of it. This wasn't an accident.
You remember the Hidden Village in Twilight Princess? Well, I personally love that spaghetti western-like setting, and we recreated the scene because we wanted people to be able to find joy in FPS games. I also thought that if you were able to use the Wii Zapper with it, it would be even more fun.
Instead of his standard bow, they would outfit Link with a repeater crossbow, so he could shoot his way through familiar Twilight Princess locales. The idea of a gun was debated, but ultimately decided against, since Link with a gun would seem pretty inappropriate to Nintendo. Also vetoed by Nintendo was an idea from Miyamoto to have Link get teleported to the future in a Terminator-style plot that would justify his use of a gun. It seems a bit odd considering how focused Miyamoto was on making the game as simple as can be, but maybe it brought the developers some comfort to know that even Miyamoto was having his ideas shot down too. It was debated whether the crossbow should be rapid fire or not. It didn't seem realistic, but they decided to implement it anyways because it was more enjoyable. Ultimately, like Miyamoto wanted, the game would end up being bereft of story. It was very short and very straightforward. The level to which this game had been detached from the original idea of a Twilight Princess sequel can be perfectly exemplified in the following quote by Miyamoto regarding the name of the game.
Since it is a kind of introduction to FPS games, we were originally thinking of calling it Introduction to Wii Zapper. But then we decided that people might get that confused with Introduction to Wii, and we didn't want that to happen.
The game was so far from the Majora's Mask style sequel it began as that it didn't even originally have Legend of Zelda in its name. It seems like, as far as Miyamoto was concerned, the Zelda aspects were merely window dressing around the primary purpose of the game as a tech demo for the Wii Zapper. It would end up with the name Link's Crossbow Training, and it was released in Japan in May of 2008. This game, which started its life as a sequel to one of the most beloved Zelda titles, now served as not even a game on its own, but as a pack-in title for the Wii Zapper. It was met with mixed reception, a far cry from the critical acclaim of the game it was based on. People cited it as being far too short, fairly unambitious, and some found the game to handle poorly with the peripheral that it was made for. In the broader Legend of Zelda discourse and fandom, Link's Crossbow Training is mostly forgotten. When it is brought up, it is often with a level of derision or disgust. Zelda spin-offs have a spotty record, and Link's Crossbow Training doesn't help dispute that.
I often wonder how Miyamoto feels about the fact that the game was criticized for the very restrictions he put in place. Nevertheless, the game does have a small but dedicated following of people who enjoyed it. I am one of those people. When I play Link's Crossbow Training, I can't help but to feel that the game has a lot of care put into it. It feels like the game could have gotten away with much less effort, and yet the environments are lovingly designed, the enemies are perfectly picked and are translated creatively to a first and third person shooting game atmosphere, and the boss battle against the Star Lord is genuinely excellent. The game is kind of good despite itself. And it doesn't really surprise me this is the case. It is so obvious that the team behind Link's Crossbow Training wanted to be making the next Majora's Mask, a game that still influences people to this day, not a Wii peripheral pack-in. But instead of letting this desire go to waste, they used it to polish what they were allowed to do to a shine, and to fight with Miyamoto for every last scrap of depth that they could win from him. I do genuinely enjoy Link's Crossbow Training. I think the Zelda team did an admirable job considering the restrictions they were under. All the same, one can't help but wonder what would have come of the Twilight Princess sequel that never was. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, please consider liking and subscribing. It helps me see what kind of content you enjoy. I'd be keen to make more videos on other cancelled Zelda projects if you guys do end up liking this one. Also, big thanks to Tyler Townsend for helping voice this video, and to Connor from Zelda Beyond for providing the Miyamoto voiceovers. Links to both channels below. As always, stay safe out there. Keep your crossbow raised and your ears open. The Arbiter's Ground is dangerous to navigate these days, and it's dangerous to go alone.